What's up, everybody? Arrg the Pirate here, and today I'm going to go over power and how it affects you as a hero. Now, this is a suggested video by Tristan White through one of my comments on a YouTube video. So, if you have any suggestions or would like me to break something down, comment on one of my videos, or you can always join Discord. I actually have a completely separate page through my Discord where it's just for people to suggest things that they would like to see. So it might take me a little bit to get to it, but I will definitely work on it, guys. So if you have anything you want to see or want me to explain, go ahead and leave a comment and I will do my best to get it out as quickly as possible. Alright, now for as far as this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Gideon and Murdoch to really test out a handful of power cards. I believe I start at around 11 or 12 power and then go up to 13 to 14 to 16, I think. You know, it's very hard to go up just one power, and I had to kind of find a deck that I could do that on. I'll also kind of discuss ability pin and basic pin, which, you know, those really help out, and I think people kind of have a misconception of what power does. But let's get into the video, and hopefully we can actually kind of straighten things out for a few of y'all newer heroes. Now, I'm currently at 4.9 power, and that is because of that 7 point into that agility tree. I go over the trees in a different video, and I'll leave a link for that. But I'm going to start this test out at 11 power, and that is with Riot Sapper. Now, this card adds 11 power, so I'm currently at 15.9 power. Now, I am going to ignore shots fired and just go with the core base damage, because shots fired does have that damage pin, and, you know, it adds a little more damage. So, we're going to ignore that. I'm hitting for 95 damage with my basic attack. So, we can see at 15.9 power, Murdoch's hitting for 95 damage. Pretty simple. I'm going to head back to base, put on Nitro Boost, and that Wicked Repose, which will give me 12 power total. Each one of these are 6 point power cards, so I'm currently at 16.9 power. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to head into the jungle and hit this same minion. And you can see I'm hitting for 96 damage now, which is just 1 point above. So 1 power, it is adding just 1 point of damage with the difference of 11 and 12 points in power. Now, the next card I'm going to try out is a 13-point card, and that is Invader Mage. But Invader Mage does have ability penetration. But ability penetration really only applies to abilities, so Murdoch's Buckshot would actually hit a little harder. But we are testing this out on basic damage. We'll get into the abilities with Gideon here in a minute, but I'm just going to test this out with that basic damage, so I am not concerned about abilities right now, and I'm hitting for 97 damage, so you can see it's just 1 more point up. Now, the next test we're going to do is over Guard Piercer. Now, Guard Piercer is a 16-point power card, which that should give us 100 damage. But it also has basic armor penetration and 16 points worth. So that means we're taking off enemy armor or ignoring enemy armor when we hit them. So they should receive even more damage. But if you do not remove all of their armor, they will still have a little bit of protection. But at the most, this card will hit for 116 damage, and you can see we're hitting for 114 damage. That means they do have more than 16 armor, and they are protected just a little bit. But if you were playing a hero that had 0 armor, which, you know, that actually can't happen because we do have passive armor, you would get that full 16 points worth of damage on top of that penetration. But again, everybody has ability armor, so you will never get that full 16 points worth. You will hit for roughly around 114 damage with this card on, depending on the amount of armor each enemy has. Now, the last test I'm going to do is over Glycerin Dawn, which gives us 21 power and puts us at 25.9 power. Now, if the math continues right, we should be hitting for roughly around 105 damage. Now, since the damage numbers actually go into decimals, you will get tiny fluctuations here, so you might be off a point or two. Nothing is exactly perfect, and this is no special case right here. we're hitting for 103 damage, which is a good amount of damage, but you can see Guard Piercer being at less damage hits much, much harder. So getting that basic pin or even that ability pin, which we'll see in a minute, is definitely worth it because you are shredding armor and that's going to allow you to do more actual damage to that enemy hero. Now let's talk about the caster side of power. Now first I want to throw on that Riot Sapper and kind of show that off, but if you notice I just have 1 point into my rock. And the reason for this is I want to show y'all that levels matter tremendously to casters. So with my rock at rank 1 I hit for 140 damage, which that's a good chunk, but level 13 I should be hitting much harder. And at rank 2, I hit for 211. That's a huge difference. That's 71 points, harder. And then I hit for 282, which is another 70 points. And then lastly, at rank 4, I hit for 353. Now, our next test is going to be over a 12-point build, the exact same we did with the power side or the basic damage side. This is the exact same deck, exact same setup. We're going to put on Nitro Boost and with that Wicked Repose. So hopefully we can kind of see a difference, but we are at 12 points in power. So just 1 point in power above that Riot Sapper. So hopefully we can see a rise in power, but on that basic side, we saw 1 damage increase. So this is where abilities can kind of get a little tricky. You see, we actually do 3 points in damage more. We are at 356, which, this really means that power scaling for abilities is much higher than it is on those basic attacks. And that's really why, you have your casters. You want your casters, they really need player level to get that Q to rank 4 or, their damage dealing ability to rank 4, as well as needing cards to put on those power spikes. Now, next we're going to try out Invader Mage. Invader Mage has 13 points of power with 18 ability penetration. So, if we just kind of do the simple math, we should see a rise of 3 points in damage with that ability damage, or with that ability pin, but we hit for 386. Now, one thing is we have that 18 points of ability pin, so I would like to see what damage I would do without that ability pin. I go ahead and throw on Swamp Stalker, and now the reason I didn't test this out in the basic build is because Swamp Stalker increases basic damage, and it's too hard to tell, what the flat numbers are unless I'm standing next to somebody. But we can actually see a huge difference in this. Now, I hit for 358 damage, which is a total of 28 less damage than you did with Invader Mage. And this is a difference in a 7-point card and a 4-point card. Of course, they're completely different trees, but that's just showing you how important that just having that ability pin is. Invader Mage is an absolute incredible card, and for that 4 points, you're not only adding, that 13 power, but you're adding that 28 extra damage just for that ability pin. Now, I do throw on Guard Piercer, and we hit for 366, which is 8 more damage than Swamp Stalker, so 3 power for 8 damage. That's right along lines of everything else. Lastly, we're going to test out Glycerin Dawn. Now, we're going to see a huge difference with this card, and that is because the 7 points into the Intellect tree. At 7 points into the Intellect tree, you do 3.2% bonus damage with all abilities. Now, this stacks with overpowered spells. It stacks with, Atomic Soldier if you were running that. So, having this percentage, you can see we actually do 25 more damage with just 5 more power. So, the scaling completely changes once you hit that 7 points in. Now, there's one simple reason I cannot give you a flat number, like, hey, every hero scales at this, and that is because of cards like Heavy Hitter, Atomic Soldier, the 7-point gem, or the 7-point Intellect tree, Milestone, and then overpowered spell gems, you know, those all change scaling. Now, at 7 points into Intellect Tree, you get that 3.2%. Atomic Soldier gives you 10%, so that's 13.2, and then Overpowered Spells gives you 20% increased damage, so that's a total of 33.2 additional damage, and that's absolutely huge. If you're hitting somebody for, you know, 1,000 damage, you're now hitting them for 1,332 damage. That's a lot of extra damage for just, you know, having your kit or having your cards set up nice. And when you build that deck that complements, you know, the other abilities, you know, that's huge. That is one reason I really enjoy having Atomic Soldier, because, you know, sure, there are a bunch of other cards that might be very viable, but if you can get all the way to that overpowered spells, you're getting an extra 32 or 33.2% damage, and that's absolutely huge. So, you know, you cannot say this is the flat scaling. It really depends on what you do, and then once you hit level 8, your scaling completely changes. Now, this is not quite the same for that basic side, but if you have Heavy Hitter on, it is a flat 15% increase on damage. So if you're hitting for 100, you're now hitting for 115, and that's flat. You know, that also pairs with your armor or your basic pin, thing like that, everything like that. So scaling and power completely change, and this is one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to dealing with power. You know, everybody wants to throw on as much power as possible, which, you know, that's very understandable. But when you have cards that give you these big percentage boosts, or, you know, even that overpowered spells, or something like critical hits, that completely changes the amount of damage you're able to do, and so therefore kind of changes your scaling, because if you are using a critical hit card, you know, yeah, your scaling has not changed, but you do have to figure in those critical hits to your damage. And it's very much the same with, you know, abilities, but ability damage is much, much more complicated for, you know, those simple reasons. You can go up to 30% in damage, and then, you know, if you throw something like Red Zone into it, you know, your abilities with Red Zone would actually hit for 53.2, your basics hit for an additional 50%, and then if you throw on Atomic Soldier, you know, they can get very, very complicated, and scaling just completely goes out the window. Well, that's going to wrap it up, guys. You know, power scaling in version 42 has completely changed. Before, you know, I could tell you an exact number, but since there are all these percentage cards, gems, you know, slots, things like that, it gets a lot more complicated. And of course, the ability side is much more complicated than the, you know, just basic damage side. But, you know, when you have basic damage, that your scaling for your abilities might change as well. You know, if you have heroes like Revenant or even Grim and you're building them as casters, you know, you might have something like Heavy Hitter and Atomic Soldier on, or, you know, where if you do have that, it's going to just completely throw off your scaling, unless I actually go in and do test and spend tons and tons of time on it. There's no real way I can say, hey, this is how it's going to work. So I really hope this video helped out, guys, and I hope it kind of shed some light on a few of y'all's questions. If you have any more questions, requests, anything like that, if you'd like me just to talk about something that you're curious about, definitely leave me a comment, and if you haven't done so already, join our Discord. Like I said, I've got a whole channel set, you know, or a whole little whatever they're, yeah, I think it's channel. I've got that set up to where you can leave me suggestions that you would like to see, and I will get them out. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and if you did enjoy this video, show me some love, leave me a comment, think about subscribing, and as always, I'll see y'all in the next video.